Welcome to Dr. Infrastructure on WeFM 106.3. My name is W. Ahato. In today's program, we will discuss project contract management, negotiation, and project governance with Jean-Christophe, who will be joining us via Zoom from Geneva, Switzerland. The UN defines project contract management as a strategic concept that covers the whole procurement cycle, including planning, formation, execution, administration, and closeout of a contract. At Dr. Infrastructure, we provide public-private partnership, that is, PPP advisory services, and sell properties. We inform, educate, and inspire positive infrastructure outcomes. Our faculty members come from many parts of the world to enhance infrastructure delivery in Africa. Professor Benjamin Gomez of Harvard Business School said, "Behind every partnership lurks an incomplete contract. When this occurs, the contract document or project constitution helps to resolve the conflicts." Our guest today is Jean-Christophe from Geneva, Switzerland. Let me tell you something about JC, as he is fondly called. JC is the Executive Director of the World Association of PPP Units and Professionals, a Geneva-based NGO. He is a deal mediator and works as independent director, mostly in non-listed companies. He is Adjunct Professor of Governance and has taught Transformational Leadership at the Geneva School of Diplomacy. He worked with Bombardier, Citibank, LBBW, German-Brazilian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Sao Paulo, the Robert Bosch Foundation, Germany, SGL Carbon, and the United Nations Program Against Money Laundering in Vienna, Austria. He specializes in business diplomacy, PPP contract management, project execution, dispute resolution systems design, and business-to-business mediation. JC speaks 6 languages. He trained as a banker. He is a lawyer and an accredited commercial mediator in Switzerland. He holds an executive MBA from SEC and Hallman Business School and holds legal degrees from universities in Germany, France, and Switzerland.
This program is powered by Igwehi Transatlantic UK, technical partners to Algorithm Limited. Their services include property sale and purchase, facility management, public-private partnership advisory services, due diligence research and training, project development. You can reach them on WhatsApp on 0808 439 1140, or you can call or text 0703 595 8339.
Now it is my pleasure to welcome you to the program, JC. Can you share your experiences with us on complex infrastructure contracts as a system or a method?
Certainly.
For delivering infrastructures, especially in Africa?
Of course. So long-term complex infrastructure contracts are a special beast. We're talking about very long project life cycles of, between 15 to 25 years. And a lot is about how people interact with each other in these complex long-term infrastructure contracts. Of course, there's a technical skill of managing the contract accordingly. That's not where the science insights lie so much. What is really important is making people understand that the contract provides for obligations and responsibilities. And unless all the people involved with managing and executing these obligations and responsibilities are really aligned, it's going to be very difficult to be able to deliver value also at the end of the day. So rather than having a contract that proposes certain things, it's important that the contract actually delivers things. And to ensure that this happens, it's important to set up as early as possible in the project lifecycle, ideally even before the notice to proceed, a contract obligation and responsibilities matrix. This is something that is quite detailed. It's a detailed assessment that involves really all functions in the project. I mean, I'm talking from engineering to quality assurance to finance to legal affairs to communication, etc. And this is necessary because all these roles that they play, more or less visibly, are a consequence of the contract that has been signed. In a public-private partnership, all these different stakeholders are able to work along the project lifecycle and the different gates that they achieve. If they're able to really agree on what are the respective obligations and responsibilities, that's when they're going to be able to deliver value or not just propose it. And in order to make that happen, it's important to have proper mechanisms and procedures in place. It may be very useful to visualize the contract relationships to reduce the complexity and to be able to stay on top of all the obligations and responsibilities.
Well, I think from what you've said so far, it would appear that visualization of contract, either in a flowchart, yes, or in any way by picture or diagram, can simplify understanding such that all parties to the contract are on the same page. That's really brilliant. What can we do to minimize and prevent conflict in PPP infrastructure project?
That's a very interesting question, Wilson. I think a lot depends on the posture. Do both teams, so do they really want to put all their resources together in order to be successful, or do they want to play not to lose? And that's a big difference in terms of the approach that they take from the framing. If you have a long-term relationship, this relationship must be honed. And so it's important to have regular readjustments. And how can that best be done? For example, with retrospectives, there will be sort of a Scrum Master approach where somebody will look at the whole situation, maybe for the last 2 weeks or for the last month, and work with the project teams in order to look what has happened, digest that, and take stock in order to go in direction of a continuous improvement. This is extremely helpful to avoid disputes. An issue is something that needs to be understood by everyone. It's maybe the moment to discuss together what creative solutions can be found under the contract in order to overcome that hurdle.
Absolutely, Jesse. I think a derivative of what you've just said does make a lot of sense. Namely, all parties need to be on the same page. Where they are not on the same page, there have to be a mechanism for escalation, which is very important in project conflict resolutions. But that being said, could you give us some examples where you have helped with system designs on dispute resolution, which ultimately enhanced the project delivery?
When you are faced with an issue that becomes bigger and bigger, and there are difficulties in the decision-taking process because, let's face it, in a project there are hierarchies, who can decide up to which amount. A lot of times these things get escalated very quickly to a higher level, but the higher level sometimes passes it back down because they lack insights on detailed questions, and this is very unfortunate because it makes lose time. So it's important to develop tools to avoid escalating things when they can be taken at the lower level. It's not always easy to find the right balance there, and when there is a dispute that will escalate, then it's important to explore interests rather than just the positions or the rights of the respective party. And that is important because it helps preserve relationships. It helps also to find inventive solutions. And it's also more complex for technical disputes than going directly into a court dispute or an arbitration, which is going to cost a lot of money. We have to prepare witnesses for all that. And this is time that the project teams don't have to actually deliver on that project, but they're looking backwards to something that happened in the past. And what you want to do in a project is actually make sure that people have the focus for the future and improve the relationship so that they can deliver the project. Infrastructure contracts are dispute boards. I think they have huge advantages because they enable to have a standing dispute board that goes along the project lifecycle with experts from engineering, experts from quantity surveyors, experts in legal considerations and project management. But what is important is that you have neutral people who understand the risks at stake and who actually make sure that the project continues and doesn't stall, which brings difficulties. Especially, we see it right now during the global pandemic. There are a lot of companies that have to invoke clauses like force majeure, for example, through a assisted B2B, business-to-business mediation to find good outcomes and renegotiate those parts of the contract that have turned out to be really difficult to solve.
Thank you so much, Jesse. As you spoke, I can already see you coming to Nigeria to help us with our clients who are having challenges in managing their project from conception to delivery, because in the field we have seen where very little challenges, people are not able to manage it, and as a consequence, project is delayed, there are overrun, costs is involved. But I think from what you have said, when you do have a system in place on dispute resolution, which everybody adhere to, you can very easily resolve issues and move on, looking at the project outcome, focusing on the future and the benefit of the project. That becomes a driving force as opposed to looking backward.
Absolutely agree, especially because it's a fact. I mean, the honeymoon period is of short duration in a large, complex infrastructure
That's
project.
correct.
It's all the more important that that there is an understanding for that, and that you make provisions and be prepared. The better prepared, that's the irony of things, the better prepared stakeholder, the less likely it is that there will be a conflict. And if there is a conflict, it's important to take a proactive approach to it. Conflict is natural, conflict is human, but there are smart ways to handle that. And one of them is to make sure that the project partners stay in control and find solutions to the outcome.
Absolutely, JC. Now, that takes us to the next point. What part of the takeaway from what you've just said, it means that project boards, project governance are critical to the success of any project delivery, especially large-scale or mega-scale PPP project undertaking. Now, from your experience, what is PPP project governance?
PPP project governance is making sure that people have a system in place that enables them to navigate that complexity. Complicated relationships sometimes between a private contractor and civil servants from government, who are the ones who have written the public tender, who need to deliver infrastructure. But what is important in project governance is that it's for the beneficiaries. A public-private partnership contract needs to improve lives of civil society. And in order to do that, you need to focus and put the beneficiaries at the middle of the considerations. And this is what I call SDG-driven public-private partnerships. So you want to actually take the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN 2030 agenda, with its 17 goals, and break them down into what this project can do for society. And this all needs to be then pivoted into the contract. And pivoting it just in terms of words is insufficient. It needs to be lived. And this is what you ensure with PPP project governance. So for that to happen, it's very useful to do what I call a memorandum of understanding and process, which is something outside of the purely legal contract, which rules the PPP relationship. A memorandum of understanding and process will actually help the project partners to make sure that there is purpose for the venture, that the spirit of the venture is clear, what are the commitments, and what is the future vision. And there you can, put all these elements that create trust, transparency, honesty, the values really that drive the project. It's also important to set out what are the key objectives and responsibilities, not just in an executive summary, but something where people can really adhere to and develop energy and derive energy from it. Also, it can regulate what is the authority, how does regular communication happen, and escalation, decision making, how should that be done in these project teams. Public and private need to deliver together in order for that infrastructure project to be successful. That's what a SDG-driven PPP is. The resource commitments can be put into that memorandum of understanding and process. The financial rationale can be put in there. The risks and division of rewards, should there be, commercial revenues at some point. Is that concession contract going to be a government paid model, or is it going to be a user paid model? What are project-specific issues? What about intellectual property consideration rights, licensing, non-disclosure agreements? All these things can be regulated there. Projects can involve, sometimes you have government entities that merge, or you have companies that also do divestments, and there'll be changes there. So how do you go about these future transformations? How do you plan an exit also, and compensation mechanisms, these things. So rather than doing that just in the contract that delivers the infrastructure, I think there's also a bigger dimension here, which I call project governance, and that can be reflected in the MOOC. For example, the escalation mechanism that we talked about earlier. It's all about making the, ESG, the incorporating the environment, social and governance aspects of the investment analysis and creating value for the future. I think that's extremely important to take this regenerative approach nowadays, because we're seeing that the classical project finance initiative has had limitations.
Thank you so much for your brilliant expose on that point, namely project governance. What one can take from there is that project governance is a precursor to project success. What would be your advice for enhancing PPP infrastructure successful delivery in Nigeria?
I think it's important to work together to define how you can successfully navigate complex long-term PPP relationships. It's all about defining effective mechanisms that enable you to implement these principles. I would even argue that every PPP needs to have like a Minister of Foreign Affairs to protect the alliance of both private sector and public sector, because only then will they be really successful and advocate their cause and the need to have that public-private infrastructure. Nobody builds that just for his own ego. It's being built for beneficiaries. And so they need to be center stage. And this is the vision that needs to be honed, developed, and it's around that everything needs to be built. Contract management, interest-based negotiations that may at some point end up in a deal mediation. These are the things that I see are so necessary and what I do. And it's important to have this business diplomacy management approach to managing these long-term projects, because at the end of the day, if we're not able to make the PPP successful, it's a loss, not only for private, but for public sector and especially for the beneficiaries. So it really requires that alignment, that shared vision in order to reduce risk and avoid people ending up in entrenched positions that lead nowhere, but cause a lot of frustrations and at the end don't deliver on the infrastructure promise that is so necessary. We know that there is a big infrastructure gap, and we need to address it, and we need to do that by building better public-private partnerships that deliver on the needs of the civil society.
Thank you so much, JC. We're almost coming to the end of this conversation. We have been speaking with Jean-Christophe, fondly called JC. He is a lawyer, a banker. He's walked around the globe, and we'll be speaking with him over the last 10 to 20 minutes. He has given us a lot of insight. Don't worry, JC will be with us in Nigeria in 2021 as we continue to help organizations, both public and private sectors, to deliver more on infrastructure project. As a takeaway, one of his takeaways for today is that PPP infrastructure is the recipe for overcoming infrastructural deficit in Nigeria. And for it to succeed, every hand must be on deck. There has to be project governance, which he has explained in details. He told us about system design on dispute resolution, escalation method to ensure that disputes are resolved in a friendly manner. He also told us how to minimize and prevent conflicts in the project delivery. And of course, he took us through how to manage contracts in complex infrastructure projects. Thank you so much, JC. Stay tuned to this program. We'll have the privilege and honor of bringing Anders De Leon, the Chief Executive Officer of Hyperloop TT. He is known globally for his focused management style and creation of growth-oriented businesses within the infrastructure construction and alternative energy sectors. You will learn a lot from him about the future of transportations in the world. He is one of the leading technology experts in the world on future of transportations, and some of his peers include Elon Musk, Richard Branson, and a few others who are pioneering the new infrastructure that will enable us to travel at the speed of over 1,000 kilometers per hour on land. To know more about him and his achievement, as well as the future of transport infrastructure using capsule technology, make sure you join us at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, 21st December 2020, where you will know more about the future transport infrastructure. Thank you for listening. Continue to send in your comments to 08084391140. I repeat, 0808-439-1140. Follow Dr. Infrastructure on all social media.